panelists before I'll introduce myself. So let's start with Joël, Dori. Joël is stimulating and connecting the ecosystem with startups and Startup Amsterdam, not Startups Amsterdam, Startup Amsterdam. And as a governmental party, they actively engage with scale-ups to help them grow further. Joël is involved in multiple projects, working on topics like internationalization, new technologies, and more. And I'm very curious, Joël, to hear from you. What is more? And first of all, welcome.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Tell us a little bit more.
Yeah, so we have a whole program written. It's a whole document of multiple pages which is published on our website. And how we work is with by building this program, Startup Amsterdam, we have multiple pillars. Access to markets, internationalization is one of them. New technologies is one of them. So creating communities around artificial intelligence and blockchain. But another pillar is, for example, content and networks. So that speaks for itself. So also giving startups a stage on conferences, for example, like these. Other ones are creating, educating talent, attracting talent, and stimulating female entrepreneurship, for example. And our last pillar in this program is the creation of innovation districts. That's so a lot of startups and scale-ups want to be situated near the canals, which is of course nice, but there's not too much room there. So we want to also stimulate new innovation districts like Science Park, for example, and other hubs. Our whole program is on our website, so if you have a couple of hours free or you're interested, read it all through. That's in a nutshell where the topics where we work on.
Great. Well, when you say more, you were not exaggerating. It definitely is a lot more. And when you say website is that startupamsterdam.nl.com? Which one is it?
.org.
.org. Okay, obviously. Yeah. So startupamsterdam.org, and I will type that in the chat box later, so everyone will have it. Thank you so much for joining us, Joël. In the meantime, I see in the chat box we have Philip joining us. Philip, I'm very curious where you're calling in from. Same with Renee. Welcome to this session. I'm very curious to hear from you where you guys are from, where you're calling in from. Renee is calling in from The Hague, also near the beach, Amsterdam East. Okay, good. So we're having a Dutch party here so far. Let's see if we can get some people from overseas maybe joining. Well, Julie was one of them, so let's see that we can still get her. Oh, and Charlotte's here. She's joining from Amstelveen. Welcome. Lauren's joining from Amsterdam. Thank you so much for joining. I'm really curious as well to hear from all of you what you would like to learn. Oh, we have Melinda Jacobs. We share a last name. Welcome, Melinda. You're calling in from Berlin. Very curious to hear as well what it is that you would like to know. So already think about maybe, for the next hour, we have two specialists here in the area of collaborating with government. We have an American living in Amsterdam Center. Welcome. And I'm very curious to hear from you guys what it is that you would like to learn from these two experts. So let's move to Dwayne. Dwayne, I have an introduction for you too. Here we go. So Dwayne is the creator of the Ready to Scale program. He works together with the City of Amsterdam and the Amsterdam universities. Together, they support 50 potential scale-ups every year. Ready to Scale is one of many public-private partnerships that Dwayne has created in the Netherlands with the company that he works for called K+V. Welcome, Dwayne. And I see we have Julie coming in. I'm really excited about that. So Dwayne, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, good to be here.
Tell us a little bit more about these potential scale-ups that you guys support every year.
Yeah, so with Ready to Scale, we have created a program together with where we saw that a lot of startups have growth issues. Of course, a lot of people joining here today, the base conference, probably have those as well. And what we found out was that if we can create a program where we can support them, the chances of success for these companies are going to increase. And therefore, we've created this program in 2013 and still going strong, working on startups from 250k revenue and above, about 700,000-800,000 euros, and trying to make them scale-ups in the definition that they really grow fast and well, continue to be a really valuable part of the Amsterdam economic situation.
Wow, welcome. Thank you so much. In the meantime, thank you for joining. If there's anything in specific you would like to know from Dwayne, any questions that you have about what he does with Ready to Scale, the chat box is here. Now is your time to ask. And thank you, Alexander, for putting in the website startupamsterdam.org in case anybody would like to know more about the program. And Renee asked us out of curiosity, checking out how the sessions work. I'm facilitating one tomorrow. Okay, great. So I hope that this is that we're doing a good test run. So you can take our example, or if we screw up hopelessly, then you know what not to do tomorrow. In the meantime, I see that we have Julie in the room. Julie, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
So the only thing is we can't see you yet. We can hear
I'm
you.
so sorry. So sorry. I'm just trying to. Can you still hear me? Okay.
We can hear you. Yes.
Hello.
Can you hear us?
Me? Hi, hello. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, we can hear you just fine, Julie. Can you hear us? Not sure. You can hear us.
Probably not.
No, I don't think so. Okay, I see Renee is already typing. We can hear you, Julie. So I hope that she sees that.
Hi, I'm conscious you might be hearing some feedback from speakers. Are you?
No, we're not. We don't hear any feedback.
Okay, great. But you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Great.
Okay.
I'm so sorry, camera. Just having technical problems today. It's one of those days. But the good folks, I think it was Jan managed to connect them in. So
great. Well, we're really happy to help you. I was already warning these two men that they would have to work for 3. But now that you're here and maybe we get to see you at some point, but if not, at least we get to hear you. So let me take a moment to introduce you properly to our audience, which I see is also growing. So welcome for everyone who just tuned in. If you want to let us know that you're here, say hi, let us know where you are from, but also let us know what triggered you to came into the session, and maybe there is some specific question that you would like to see answered. Feel free to put that into the chat. So let me go and introduce Julie Craik to you. Do I pronounce your name correct if I say Julie Craik?
Correct. Absolutely correct.
Okay, perfect. So Julie does business development across the creative, digital, and tech industry at Dundee City Council, a local government authority in Scotland. They lead on a transnational project called Converge that is supported by the EU North Sea region, and that includes the Netherlands. They have 9 partners in 5 different countries. It's all about using the creative digital tech resources for applications like delivery, training, marketing, and to inform R&D. Welcome, Julie.
Thank you.
Can you tell us a little bit more about what you do with Converge?
Okay, so it started with we had a previous project that was 15 partners in 9 countries. So sorry, 6 countries. So that was quite a group to manage. But essentially, European projects are transnational projects anyway, and indeed all of them are very much about collaboration between the public and private sector. And in our particular case, we've always focused on kind of the creative digital tech areas. So I've worked both leading projects, but also supporting projects, everything from Horizon 2020 through to regional development and writing projects and delivering on them.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing that. I think there's a lot of valuable things that you have to share with our audience today. And my very first question, and it is for whoever feels like answering that one the first, and maybe there's someone else who can then add to the first answer, is when we think about public and private partnerships, what are the biggest challenges that we need to be aware of before starting such a partnership?
I would personally say cultural differences that and trust. I think everybody I've ever asked about putting together collaborations, trust is really the big word, isn't it? Because you might be trying to engineer a relationship from nothing, from absolutely no contact before. And as well, sometimes you might be up against some kind of deadline, nobody's fault. So you've got to kind of be willing to have that trust. But over to Dwayne and Joel, what have been your experiences?
Yeah, so Julie talks mostly about trust. Dwayne, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so that's really an important factor, and one of the things that I also really look into with these collaborations is, do you all want the same things? Do you all are you all on the same page? And trust is probably something that's part of that, but having the same goals, going to the same going in the same direction is really important, especially once you have a partnership between public and private companies where, yeah, like you say, Julie, cultural differences are there, and projects like you're doing and describing also with international differences make that extra complex, even more complex. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Joel, do you have anything you would like to add to that?
Yeah, definitely. Like Startup Amsterdam was established as a public-private initiative. That's how we always express ourselves. And you notice that even though you want to work a lot with the private sector as a government, it's just sometimes really hard because you're coming from different organizations. So we're really action orientated. We're action program, but still we're part of the government where you need to take other things in consideration. And also we encounter a lot of companies that we want to help, but there's just we're not part of the team of a company. We try to help, but we try to help as much companies as we can. So that is sometimes where there's a little bit friction, and that's good to take into account.
Yeah. Would any of you have a very practical tip for any of our viewers who are considering, as being a startup scale up or scale up, seeking a government help or a government partnership? What would be something out of one of the best practices you would advise people to do or not to do in order to ensure establishing that trust and a unified language from the start?
I think if I talk to startups and scale-ups, I tell them it's like getting a new client. If you get a new client, you say get to know your customer, and if you want to work together with governmental organizations, get to know them, what drives them, what's important to them, and sometimes it's innovation, sometimes it's sustainability. But if you don't know that and only start from what you want.
Dwayne, may I ask you to repeat your last sentence, because on my screen you froze for a little bit. I'm not sure if it was just me.
Okay.
Repeat that last sentence for me.
Yeah, sure. So what I said was that if you start only from yourself and only what you want, without considering the position of the governmental organization, the collaboration will fail even before you start.
Yeah. So it's really about finding that alignment at the beginning and really understanding from each other what it is that you would like to get out of the partnership.
Exactly. You should work. You should work on that yourself. So don't expect the government to always do that for you, because they're a big organization. They got a lot of startups and scalers coming towards them. Just make sure that you are prepared.
And if I can add to that, that's a really good point. I think there's a lot of information out there, so you actually know what the position of the government is and where their ambitions are and where their focus points are. And you can, that's publicly available, so you can just step into that knowledge and do your research, and then collaboration is way better possible.
You're so I'm so sorry to interrupt, but you're both so right. I've got a slightly contrast of you to Dwayne, because actually, as a kind of smaller local government authority, we've kind of got to do a bit of a sales pitch to get partners for projects. So actually, my sales pitch tends to be, what is there? Is there something that you're wanting to do already, but you don't necessarily have funds for? And is that something that could be made to work for this project that we've got in mind? So that's kind of, it depends. Maybe try and find a government authority that's a bit more desperate for your business than say, the bigger ones. But the point that Joel was making about doing your homework, that is so true. I think that there isn't a week goes past where I'm not coming across a whole new funding strand. I came across one just this week, which is called ITEA, like idea, but ITEA, and it's for software development. So it's funding, and it's very much you can apply it on a collaborative basis. But I would certainly say that whoever you're talking to on perhaps an economic development or innovation advice front, don't necessarily expect them to know everything that's out there, because there is so much stuff both regionally, nationally, and transnationally that would probably be too much for anyone to know.
Julie, I think I've heard most of what you said, but in my case the connection is falling in and out a little bit. I'm just checking with the other ones. Experience the same. I see as well. Pamela has trouble understanding you, so I'm just checking with you, Julie. Is there something that we can do to improve?
I'm so sorry. Can you hear me okay now?
Yeah, I think it's not that we can't hear you okay, but it's just that connection seems to go in and out, which means that sometimes your voice, we hear it with intervals, and that makes it very challenging to hear every word that you're saying.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay if we can't do anything about the microphone. May I just ask you if you would slow down a little bit the pace, then even when we miss little bits and pieces, it's not that much that we would miss, and it would be easier for us to piece it together.
Of course.
That's usually an old trick that works if we can't change or if we can't improve the connection.
Okay. I was saying in response to Dwayne's comments that it's quite we actually have to do quite a sales job to get partners for projects, and that we're actually saying, what is it that you're wanting to do to see if we can kind of find some synergy between a project and what individual partners are wanting to do. So sometimes it's worth trying to identify those opportunities. Might be with smaller organisations rather than with large government organisations who never have any shortage of people wanting to work with them. And I would also say, are you still hearing me okay, by the way?
Yeah, we can
kind of.
understand most of it.
Yeah.
I'll tell you,
we just make the best of it.
I
No worries.
quiet and you can move on to the next question.
So thank you for adding that. If I understood you correctly, what you're saying is that when you are seeking government support, it's always important to really look for your partner really carefully, because sometimes if you go for really big organizations, they have very different stakes than yours, and it might sometimes be more beneficial to go for the smaller projects and the smaller governmental organizations that might have more alignment with what it is you're trying to accomplish, rather than going for the big fish that everybody anyway wants to work with, so they don't really have they don't really have the stakes in there just as much as the smaller ones would.
That's exactly right. Because I mean, I saw an example recently in the UK of a project funding bid where they clearly wanted you to have a route to market, and it was obvious that organisations that had already teamed up with major brand names were in with a much better chance than people that were sort of working with kind of much smaller fish, if you like.
Yeah.
So I think to try and maybe go for not to ever limit your ambition. I'm just meaning it's good to build up a portfolio of projects and maybe scale up in that way.
Okay, yeah, I hear you. So maybe this is also an interesting follow-up question, either for Joel or Dwayne to answer. How do you, when you are scale up seeking to partner with government, where do you start and how do you decide, what kind of project or where you find your support and what is the best way to go about that, and how do you make that selection?
Yeah. If I may add from the government perspective of Amsterdam, so we saw as a program also that startups and scale-ups were struggling with doing business with the government.
Mm-hmm.
So we followed the example of San Francisco, where actually the local government said, like, okay, we have a lot of great companies here in the city, a lot of tech, but the government is not using it. Let's create a program around that. It's called the Startup in Residence program, and it's an incubator program of the city of Amsterdam. This is not necessarily focused that much on scale-ups, but more on startups. But still, it shows that the government really wants to connect with these startups and give them the opportunity to develop their products and have the government as their founding client. And the success of the program has shown, because you see it now at ministries and in other municipalities throughout the Netherlands and even international. So that has been a nice way to do it. But of course, we also run into a lot of scale-ups that are still struggling with connecting to the government. So there's still really a step to take.
Yeah. So what about you, Dwayne? Do you have?
Yeah, so I agree that the programs like Startup in Residence really help to sort of open the door from the governmental side, and that the city of Amsterdam, the government there is also rather big. So even when you think you know where you should be, then it's not always the case. So in any organization, governmental organization that you want to join, my sort of tip would be to find somebody who knows that organization already, because otherwise you're gonna get lost in the from one person to the other. So if you know somebody who already worked with them, know the right people, then they can guide you to the person that wants to work with you as well. And I think that's what I would do.
Yeah, and as a scale up, when do you know it's time that your company could benefit from investigating these opportunities to work with the government, to have a partnership from the government? When do you know is a scale up its time, or there's an opportunity? What are signals or signs?
I think you should start at your own company. What is your strategy? Where do you need help? And the scale-ups that we work with really differ in the ways that they need the government. Sometimes they want the government as clients. Sometimes they want them for the right permits. Sometimes they want them to collaborate to the people of the city. So you have to start there. What do you want? But I do think that apart from programs like Startup in Residence, where you need to be a startup, I think it really helps if you have some power. So if you're a good scale up and have got the time to work on that collaboration, because it's gonna take more time to get the collaboration going with a governmental organization. The bigger they are, perhaps the longer it will take. So you have to take that into account if you're going to start a project like this.
Yeah,
I think it's also worth remembering that certain governments, if you're able to attract private sector investment, certain governments will match that with equity investment as opposed to grant funding. So that's always worth investigating. And I think just coming back to the kind of the limitations that government face, it's worth mentioning state aids. And usually when I say state aids, people glaze over and think, oh, that's just all too complicated to think about. What it really means is that government bodies are limited by how much money they can put into private sector companies. It's broadly speaking, they can only put in about 50%. But if companies are collaborating together, it's entirely possible that they may be eligible for 80% grant funding. If you're a small or medium-sized enterprise, I know this all sounds like very kind of bureaucratic language, but it is definitely worth remembering those words, because getting the match investment, and which is certainly something you can get in Scotland, just to fly the flag for Scotland, and getting 80% instead of 50% would make a huge difference.
Yeah, correct. And I think, yeah, so to elaborate on that point, for a note for the Dutch market, a lot of local governments, both on the level of the province or also the city of Amsterdam, but also other cities, have created public funds which they use for investments. So they, exactly like Judy's saying, for instance, the province of North Holland, but almost other provinces have these called revolverende fondsen, so funds where they match equity providers and really can help you to get your funding, to raise your funding. So that's also very interesting to see. And again, also there, if you want to look at that, it's important to see what is it that they want to invest in. So for instance, in the province of North Holland, sustainable projects. So if you're not a sustainable project, don't go there because it's no use. But if you are, just go there because it might just be the other 50% that you need.
Yeah. Is there a way for people to find out? Is there a system where you say the province of North Holland is very focused on sustainability? Is there a list that says, oh, so the province of South Holland is very focused on, I don't know, innovation, or are there platforms or tools for people to use to find out, okay, where would I fit in, or where are my chances the biggest to go and apply?
I don't think so, actually. I wish there were.
I've definitely to find there are so many different platforms.
Yeah.
One thing that can be helpful is to pursue research or some kind of collaboration with a university because universities will have access to some quite expensive databases of sources of funding and information and so on. Otherwise, it's a matter of wading through what can be some really quite heavy-going European Union websites. There's also a network called the Enterprise Europe Network, and so that's worth taking a look at, just to see if maybe you can hook up with some of the people to get some tips from them. I would certainly advocate getting involved with different networks. I know that BASE has its own network. Well, we at Converge have a network, so it's just hooking up with different networks and getting tips from different people. It's amazing the information that you will come across.
Yeah, I completely agree. So of course there are networks and there are lists, but you have to combine a couple of them to find them all. But doing that can really pay off.
Yeah, I have a little bit of a devil's advocate question, because it might all seem it's so accessible, there's so much out there, and I see all that, but I'm also curious, what would be a reason not to seek a government partnership and find maybe a private investor, for example? What would be a situation where you say, if that's your situation, then I wouldn't go for a government partnership? I don't know if that's even an answerable question, but I'm sure there are people out there who would like to know.
No, if I may say for myself, if I gave that idea that it's going to be easy, then definitely not. Yeah, so I just want to state that there are opportunities and there's research to be done, and there are, of course, the government is an organization where you can work with. But as a small startup or a small scale up where you don't have the capacity, it's really hard to get a foot between the door. Also because when you're working with public money, you need to have a company that has a proven track record, and there are other companies involved. So why should they choose your company and your product instead of a bigger company? So that is a question that the government asks itself, and sometimes that's hard, but I think it's a logical question. So that makes it hard for scale ups, I think.
Yeah. And I also already mentioned that like you say, you need the capacity, Joël. So that's time, money, people to work on that collaboration, and it's going to take some time. So you also need to be able to have enough cash. If you think, well, this city or this governmental organization is going to be my first customer, and I've got 3 months of cash left, then don't go for it and find something else. But if you're a bigger organization, that's easier to do. Next to that is also important to think about sort of the restrictions that some of the especially more funding related funds do have. For instance, sometimes they say, well, we do fund you, but then we want you to keep your headquarters here in this city or in this area, whereas you might have thought that you want to go abroad or go to another country. So that is something that you really need to check out before you sign agreements like that.
Yeah. Okay. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing. I would like to get a little bit more into the practical side of things that you have experienced. And I know, for example, Joël, how there's a company called Molly. Most of the people that are listening will probably know Molly as it's a payment provider. And you said that you went there when they were still a very, very small small company with only probably a few people, and now they've reached unicorn status. I'm very curious if you could tell us a little bit about what you worked on with them and how that went, and how you look back on the partnership with them.
Yeah. So that was still pretty big, but really a lot smaller than today. So it was nice to see their office, and it was a project where I was hired for, and we focused on recruitment. So it was like an experiment to work with a couple of scale-ups and see their struggles around hiring internationals. So they're always in a need for senior developers. So we thought as a city, like, okay, this is always a question that comes back to us. Senior developers, we don't have them in our back pocket, and they're also not easy to educate, within a year. So we wanted to set up an international campaign where we were going to, actually present Amsterdam as a startup hub, a great place to work and live and set up your company. And on the other side was the recruitment part. So they would come to Amsterdam, the ones that got selected, and would have a conversation with the companies they chose for, and maybe get hired. So we ran that 2 times to just as an experiment to see if we could play a role as a government, and what we would get out of it. So the campaign was actually really well viewed. So there was a lot of outreach, and a lot of people commented on it, a lot of reactions from abroad. But we noticed that the recruiting part was still hard. Also, as a government, we were not experienced recruiters or something like that. But still, it was interesting to have such a project together with scale-ups to work together on these issues that they have. So that's one of the examples of how we try to work, partner with scale-ups in a city.
What is the biggest lesson you've learned from that partnership?
That even if you're not, even if you have the same goal and you're really working towards that goal, public and private, that still projects don't work. Sometimes it's just a lack of expertise or a lack of attention on certain subject. And that's what we noticed, that the whole recruitment part is really something outside of the scope of the government.
So if you were to take a similar project again, you would not take on that part of the project again.
It wasn't that we were recruiting ourselves, but more like we should have known that not getting a lot of reactions would eventually lead per se to hires.
Fair enough. Okay, Dwayne, I see you nodding. Do you have a similar story to share with us? Or Julie, maybe first, whoever. I would like to hear from both of you. Whoever comes up with a story first.
I think I'm subconscious that my audio is causing problems for everybody. So I'm so sorry again. I think if you're talking about challenges for partnerships, is that what you're talking about? Yes. I think it really can be when, again, it's this whole trust thing and how long we know people for. That if people are not really honest even with themselves about what they're after from a particular collaboration, and that their expectations are unrealistic perhaps, or that they don't understand that collaboration is about giving as well as taking. The thing is, of course, it's in giving. It's like sound a bit spiritual, but it's in giving that actually you learn. You give, get back knowledge, support, allies, all of that kind of thing. But you do have to do that giving thing.
And I think that's already, that's also really in the word partnership, right? It's not about just taking. But it's really about giving and taking, and it needs to be, a two-way street where you both learn and take lessons out of a project as you move on to another. Thank you for sharing, Julie. And yes, the sound is a bit the sound is a bit challenging, but still we are really happy to have you and your expertise on board. So we are willing to bite through the sound just to hear the golden nuggets that you have to share with us. So don't worry about that too much. And even here, Philip says, thank you for trying, Julie. So your collaboration here on this panel is very much appreciated. So thank you. And I'm curious, Dwayne, do you have as well a specific example of a project or something that you would like to share that you think is valuable for our participants to hear? Oh, Dwayne, now we have lost you totally. Your sound.
My sound, yeah, classic. So no, I can tell a bit more about the we created with Startup Amsterdam. I think that's also one of the ways that you can connect to governmental organizations by looking what programs they have. So the Ready to Scale program, we help these 50 companies to help them scale. We do that by helping them both by connecting to private as well as public partners. So programs like that are I think very interesting for companies to join or to at least connect to, so that they can have a sort of a fast lane towards the right people in a governmental organization. Next to that, also really interesting to see one of the projects that we've been working with is a company that was looking at the parking problems, and there you see that some governments, and that's again looking for perhaps the smaller ones sometimes, are really keen on doing pilots with innovative companies. So looking for these governmental organizations that want to try new things, look a bit aside towards the normal rules and say, well, okay, this is the rule, but we're going to try it anyway. That very interesting to create new partnerships. And also, again, I can stress enough, it's going to take some time. Can also share a bit of a more negative story, which turned out for me quite fine actually. One of the people I hired is a former startup founder, and he's helping our startups right now. But he had a really good solution for hiring problems in social housing, and was working with one of the big cities in the Netherlands on getting them in, being their customer. Had been working with them for about 6 months, and eventually that contract, when it came to the board of that city, and what he didn't do was work on several cities at the same time. Again, you can say it's a classic mistake, but 6 months in, that city bounced. He hadn't had enough cash to go, and he went. He went bankrupt, and now he's working for me. So again, it worked out for me a bit better than for him. But I'm really happy to have him on my team. But that's something, it can, even if you have a couple of people at a government organization that really want to work with you on the board level, it can turn out to go the other way.
Yeah, that's a great lesson. And Julie, I'm so happy that we can finally see you.
Hi, Julie.
Thank you. Now we have a face with a voice. Beautiful. Thank you so much. And thank you for your patience. I think that behind the scenes, a lot of people have been working really hard to get all the technique in order.
Yes, absolutely. A huge thank you to the base team.
Well, we have you here, and I'm also, because we have 15 minutes left, so I would really like to hear from the people that are in our audience. What would you like to hear from any of these three speakers? So you have learned now, where they are from, what their expertise is, who they are, and I'm really curious if there's a specific question you have for either all three or one of our panel members that they might be able to help you further on your own journey. And in the meantime, I'm very curious for all three, if this was your last if this was your last opportunity to talk to anyone who is in charge of a scale up, what is the one message that, and whether it's regarding, you know, having that partnership or regarding something else, what is the one lesson that you would like to give them, that thing that maybe, you know, tonight when they're talking to their partner about what they've learned in base conference, you know, what is the one, in one sentence, something that you would like to give to them that they will learn now and never ever forget? May I start with you, Dwayne? Dwayne, you got to unmute.
Quite a broad question, but I think of is create your goal, focus your BHAG or whatever you want to call it. Make sure that everybody on your team is aligned on it, and every day in everything that you do, ask yourself, is this helping me towards this BHAG or not? If not, then don't go for it. If the government, or if you want to work with the government and it doesn't work towards your BHAG, don't do it. If it's the only way, go for it.
Absolutely. Thank you. That's very powerful advice. May I go to you, Julie?
Yeah, I'd say really work on that elevator pitch. You never know when you're going to come across someone who could help you on your way, but you've got to be able to get it across in 1 or 2 sentences to be able to grab people's attention. So
absolutely,
people can do worse than watch a TV series that's, I think, currently on Amazon called Mad Men, about the advertising industry, or read a book about advertising, and, you know, just really hone those skills.
Absolutely. I always so this is very much my area of expertise, Julie. I'm very happy that you bring this up. I always talk about Albert Einstein's quote: "If you can't explain it simple, you don't understand it well enough." So you need to always be able, whenever you're at a birthday party and someone asks you, "So what do?" You have to be able to explain them in 2 sentences, because you never know if that person's partner or brother or sister or friend might be your next customer. So always make sure that you have that 2-3 sentence elevator pitch ready, so that you can always explain and make other people curious about what it is that you do. Thank you for that advice, Julie. I think that's great advice. Let's go to Joel. I'm very curious.
Yes. Well, it was already mentioned during this talk, but I would say, especially do your research. And it's not that entrepreneurs have a way harder job than I do and have way less time than I have. But I think there's, especially if I notice the contact or the messages entrepreneurs are sending us, that there's already a lot of information out there that they can study and really be prepared to before you get in touch and help yourself further. So I would give that as a lesson or a tip or a hint.
Great, thank you very much. I'm not really receiving any new questions, but I see one here by Dawn Jenkins, who's from the US. She's an educator and a library director. In Amsterdam, she works as an internal communication and business English consultant for multinational companies. That's a long sentence, but it is an elevator pitch. And she's eager to learn opportunities of government agencies. She sees many areas where she could be of support, but she doesn't know how to make the connections. What would be advice that you would have for Dawn?
LinkedIn is a great way to connect, and that's really, if you go look for the departments of a city or a national government, and you type in the departments on LinkedIn, you immediately get the people working for it. So that's also how we connect a lot and are looking for people where we should be in contact with. Great,
that's great advice. Julie?
I would say absolutely on LinkedIn. Clearly, that's, it could be any area when she's talking about support. Depends on the sector. So maybe pick a few sectors and identify some good events that have got government speakers talking about current policy or some new initiative that's being launched, and try to make connection with those. It can be a bit difficult getting through into actually the people, you know, who you really can have a meaningful conversation with, but be persistent and at least have a name to start with.
Yeah, that's a great strategy. So go on LinkedIn, find these people, find out where these people are speaking at events, and even if you can't get to those people directly, go via assistants, create valuable connections, and then at some point you'll find your way towards the people that you really want to speak to. That's also great advice, Julie. Thank you. Dwayne, do you have anything to add?
It's hard to add anything to that. No, I think the combination of what's been said before. You know, I think LinkedIn and network events are great, and then use the networks that you already have to get connected to the government officials that you want to meet. So, for instance, if you need somebody at the City of Amsterdam from today onwards, contact Joël or me. But we know who you are and we can help you. So that's the best way to go forward. And of course, as Julie said, have your pitch ready, because otherwise we don't know what we need to do with you.
Yes. Yeah. So for everyone looking to work with the City of Amsterdam, you have 2 people in your network now, Joel and Dwayne. You just reach out to them on LinkedIn. You tell them, I've watched your panel discussion. I really liked what you said about XYZ. Usually that really works. I hear a really fast car coming by somewhere.
Sorry, this is the center of Amsterdam.
It's okay.
And please, if you're interested in Scotland or the UK, again, in Scotland you can get a bit of match funding there, then do please get in touch. I will do my very best to point you in the right direction.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing. And we're also curious, if we would have another hour, I think we could also speak about how Brexit might or might not affect all these partnerships, how it may create new opportunities or not. But unfortunately, we have only 6 minutes left. So I would like to give each and every one of you 2 minutes to make your closing statement. And it could be about, what is amazing about building partnerships between the public and the private sector, or anything else that you would like to leave our audience with. And I'm going to start with Julie. You have 2 minutes. Go.
Okay. I would certainly advocate collaborating. To us, it's key. Particularly when we're looking at the creative digital tech sectors, but it might be all kinds of other sectors to show, tell, and sell. And I know people hate taglines, but what we mean by that is using those collaborations and using that technology for applications such as service delivery, marketing, training, informing R&D, even entertainment. And through Craik and Converge, we can absolutely help broker those partnerships and collaborations. We're totally free, by the way. So we would welcome the chance to help people collaborate.
Beautiful. Thank you. And if you're reaching out to Julie on LinkedIn or otherwise, ask her about the work she's done with the Walt Disney Company. I'm sure she has a few great stories to share. I know that I will ask her about those because I'd love to hear those. Thank you so much, Julie, for joining us. In spite of all the technical difficulties you have had to face in order to be here, we really appreciate your contribution to everything today. Thank you so much. And I also already
appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Let's go to Joel. Your famous last words on this on the base conference panel discussion.
Yeah, on the base conference. Okay. So I want to thank you first of all for that we were invited, and I want to urge also everybody that we're not only a partner to collaborate in projects, but we're also a knowledge partner. And what I mean with that is that we are publishing a lot of reports on the Amsterdam Startup and Scale-up ecosystem. So last week we published our funding report about the state of investments in Amsterdam in the tech sector. It states, for example, that Amsterdam is the 3rd in Europe. If we look on the companies valued here, it's now 73 billion, I believe. And that's just one of the examples of the reports that we publish. So if you're interested in expanding your knowledge about the ecosystem, please find them on our website. And also we have a collaboration with Deal Room where we create a database with. So also on the website is the Amsterdam Startup Map, where you can find all the investors, all the startups, all the scale-ups, all the programs that are present in Amsterdam. So go check it out.
Thank you so much. One last question. If I have only 15 minutes and I can only read one of those documents, which one should I definitely not skip?
I think the job report of
job report?
Yeah.
Okay, the job report. Okay, read that one first.
Yeah.
Okay, Dwayne, you're the closer.
Yeah. So to join Joël, I think if you want to come to the city of Amsterdam or are already working there and you want to scale up, please don't hesitate to contact us. We can really help you to grow your company. And if you want to collaborate with the government, please really know what you're looking for. So like I said, focus, make sure that you know what you want, find the government that fits. You should also know what they want, and please understand that you are working at a very different pace and method than the government organization does. So acknowledge this when you start, acknowledge this throughout your collaboration, and keep talking to each other, see what struggles each party have, and then if you do that correctly, you can really from collaborating with governmental organizations on a regional level, national level, or international level.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that with us, Dwayne. We seem to have lost your visual. But anyway, nothing has been going as it should be technically on this session.
No,
so it's okay.
happens.
We're just handling it. So then it lasts for me to say thank you all for joining and bearing with us, for everyone who has been bearing with us through all our technical difficulties. My name is Margreet Jacobs. It was an honor for me to be your host on this panel discussion. I learned a lot about public-private partnerships. And I hope to see you all at the main stage, where we are going to probably the closing of today by Veronica and Lana. I'm not sure if that's actually true, but that's what I'm guessing. And I'm going to wish you a lot of fun tomorrow at another Day at Base conference. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Hope to see you soon. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.